Hello, everyone. This is Daniel Helmer with March for a Planet. I'm here at Union Square, which is 14th Street in New York City, and I'm at a very important place for our movement, March for a Planet, because this is where Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, a statue is held here at Union Square. And so behind me is the statue of Mohandas Gandhi. And to share more, we just had an action today around economic justice and around the financial architecture system. And why March for a Planet is involved in this is because what we're working on and what Mohandas worked on was what we term the nonviolent economy. A large part of what was happening in the past in India with Mohandas and others was the restructuring of India for Indians. And so to give some history and back story for those who do not know, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in Gujarat, which is a state in India. He then went to become a lawyer or a barrister in the United Kingdom, and this was around the turn of the century of the 1800s to 1900s. And then he famously became a barrister. He was very influenced by many different things during that time, and he was then integrated into the United Kingdom system. Because at that time, as many know, India was colonized, as many parts of the world were, by European nations, including United Kingdom. And so there was incentive to integrate, especially through the forces of the system made around colonialism for the United Kingdom to keep a system that many know was unjust. And one of the things that also was influenced here in the United States was later, decades later, the civil rights movement via Malcolm X and also Martin Luther King Jr. and others, using nonviolence and using different things. But one of the things that we know is that both for the changes that we see today, it took long struggles and searching towards what we believe could be, and making it into what it will be. Even in unjust systems where we fear reprisal from those who hold privilege. And so this was one of the things that happened to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi after he integrated into the United Kingdom system to become a barrister, to be respected as a British subject. And what happened very famously later on, that then launched Mohandas Gandhi towards the building the independence of India for Indians, was a moment in South Africa where he was racially denigrated and pushed off a train in South Africa, and that was a moment where being integrated into the system, he thought, okay, I would be accepted if I integrated, but he was not, because it was inherently that this system was built for some people and not all. And one of the things that Gandhi had noted is that what we were fighting essentially was industrialization, and the push for profit and not a planet that is for everyone. That inherently has been a fight from the beginning, since the 1800s and before, to today, where we find ourselves outside of New York City, outside of the United Nations, still crying the same thing. We want a financial system We not want a planet that is for all species, all people, all things. And so this is why today, on the 1st of May 2025, also known for a day of workers' rights and workers' freedoms that many industrialized countries have fought, the injustice of some being included to enjoy and hold privilege. This is this is what today has been for many workers around the world to still fight for the right, even in the global north, even in Europe and North America. It is still a thing. But we know, especially in Africa and in Latin America, Caribbean, small and developing states, and more, our right to live is not guaranteed. Our right to survival is questioned. Even our human rights are not there, including indigenous peoples, including women and children and youth, including those who are building and holding the system, including communities discriminated based on work and descent, such as the Dalit populations of India and South Asia, and the Roma in Europe. Not only some are considered to be held in dignity. And so when Mohandas then was kicked off the train in South Africa, that was the moment where he realized he was seen by some as less. And so it began a journey even further to ask about how do we achieve harmony. And to note, it's where what he noted is that this always has been an experiment to try and find truth, to try and find a place where unity is created. And so there was a lot of stumbling and understanding, especially after the train. And so there's more that we can continue to share more around those. And still to these days, we are learning. But this is where that departure began a work towards independence of India, back in Gujarat and other places, in Tamil Nadu and others, and a search towards truth and building communities that are fully inclusive. One of the terms that Mohandas used was Sarvodaya, meaning the sun rises, and only when those who are most marginalized are included and a system is rebuilt for first those who are marginalized, which is what March for a Planet is. It's a movement led by marginalized communities, from people in poverty, from people who are discriminated by identity, to those who have held the land and protected the land but still are not recognized by colonial powers. We must build an economy that is first created for our most vulnerable people and our most vulnerable species and our most vulnerable planet. That is what Sarvodaya means. If we do not do that, we cannot rise together, all of us, the entire planet, as the sun does. And that is important because economic justice is when all marginalized communities are held together. And so the movement in India was not just about independence. It was also about building society that included everyone, that built self-sufficiency and built autonomy within the villages, that made sure that the economic system was recreated for people in the villages to build livelihood and strength. And so today, this is where we find ourselves across the world in many crises, including the realization that our financial architecture is built for only a certain class, only a certain um, percentage of people. We know here in New York City, inspired by different movements, were things that there were moments back in 2011 that drew concentration towards the divide of wealth across the world. We see this today, and we see that rich countries, global countries that hold the privilege, do not want a system to change that will shift. Even within the countries, there is a divide between wealth and unwealth, and so the disparities there make it confusing. And so what today we have to call for is to recreate our economic system, including building a global convention on debt, building a wealth tax that makes sure that we can adapt to climate change, we can adapt to the loss of biodiversity, that we can save our planet and people. Because right now, many of you know in the global south that it is hard to survive, and it's getting even harder to survive. Our agricultural systems are failing because of the stress of our economic systems and the stress of not really caring. And one of the things that also is important to note is that, and this is what we need to build a nonviolent economy. We need to build an economy that includes all, that looks at building peace and not in an industrial war complex that destroys and hurts and kills. We know that's part of it, especially because, to note, capital economies need to exploit resources. They need to use nature in order to tell themselves that they are doing a good thing. And in the past, that wasn't so much seen as the effects, but now we are beginning to see and have been seeing the detriment and devastation that these systems are having on our people, on the environment and on the planet, and we can no longer hold this. And so, yes, sustainable development, but development itself, the question is what is the goal? Because development is still even looking at keeping our same economic system and only modifying small things. And so, to build a nonviolent economy, we have to radically shift the way that we build democracy, shift the way that we build the idea of ownership and how we work together to create equity. And so this is one of the things that March for a Planet will revisit time after time. But one of the things we know, capital and environment will not mix. And so the degradation is already at a climax point that we cannot go past. And so we need to tax the rich. We need to redivert, in a crisis right now, our finances towards where it is needed the most, to create inclusion of all, and not based on loopholes in a system, not based on generational wealth, but community wealth together. That because we know that if we can't make this happen, many island nations have shifted. So the convention on debt that is being requested by many of our partners, this is where, if we can at least build debt forgiveness to global South countries, including reparations, that we know that colonialism took much wealth from developing countries, and that's why the British did not want to let go of many colonies and other European nations as well. Here is another story of colonialism. And so it was that then said, we need a just system, we need a true system, we need truth. And so, just as in India and other places, it is time to shift the imperial architecture of old systems and to bring a holistic approach where inclusion of people in marginalized communities in the global south, in Kenya, in Sierra Leone, in Mauritania, in Mauritius, in Bolivia. This needs to create a system that includes. And so, with the Finance for Development Forum, which is happening in Sevilla, Spain, at the end of June, this is a moment to shift the Bretton Woods institutions, shift the IMF and World Bank institutions, shift the whole way that intergovernmental funds are focused, shift the concentration from war to peace. We know that extraction is happening by using war as a pretext for corporations and others to get to resources for their benefit. And so the war industrial complex is part of this deep destructive system. And so, to build peace, we must build an economy that builds peace. And this is what the Financing for Development FFD summit, and right now happening, including intersessionals happening right now, can change. And there is much more that the participation in March for Planet and the Economic Justice campaign is also building. But we have it to each one of us to recreate our community, to recreate our town and our village, our city, to build nonviolent systems that include gender, that include the eradication of poverty, that include the eradication of discrimination, that include the recognition of all peoples and all species and the inclusion of biodiversity into our work. There is so much work to do, and this is where we want to sit down tonight. That this is what we're building with March for Planet is a shifted alternative, shifted economy that then holds the voices of all peoples, all nations, and building a permanent peace, an economy of permanence that allows for happiness, shifting not from GDP, but shifting to a gross national happiness index, because the deeper thing is that it is not material wealth, but internal wealth, internal health that is important, and that creates a different system of how we can. And so we hope that you join us to build this. And so we sit here in Union Square, and we also call people towards World Environment Day and towards the Financial Development Summit to build actions and discuss about how we can change the system and change our economies, change change the way that our international system works, and the way that we can, empowered by ourselves and by each other, we can change. And there are many of you across the world who are doing this, and together, if we collectively work on this, this is possible. One of the things in the Gandhian movement was the homespun movement, where villages created their own clothing. This is also hand-spun and hand-woven by community members, by farmers. This is called in India khadi, and it is the symbol of self-sufficiency. And so there's more to share, but this is building where we do the most amount of good with the least amount of harm. That's what a nonviolent economy is. It includes a care economy. It includes a blue economy and a green economy, but with the moral to make sure that all are cared for and all are included. And so, as we go through this campaign, this economic justice campaign on the mobilization, we will begin to highlight how this can happen and how this is happening, especially in the global south. That there's so much, and that part of this build up in these next 6 weeks is about restructuring the financial system to allow for finances to go to the grassroots, where we know already people are working and are much quicker and faster changing the infrastructure of the world. And so these next 6 weeks, we will ask you to join March for a Planet, to mobilize for your community, to do an action, to sit down, have a talk, and to create social media that we can push around the world so that people can call out and show the need and demand for an alternate system of economics, an alternate system of livelihood and life, an alternate system of dignity, including environmental justice, economic justice, gender justice, climate justice, and tax justice. So we sit here today to share this next to the statue of the memory of Mohandas K, Gandhi, so that we can build this and work with other organizations and movements to truly create the world that we see and other past leaders like Nelson Mandela had asked to truly strive to create, without corruption, without greed. And so we ask you, please join us and join the movement, join March for a Planet, and stay tuned for more videos. And we'd like to say, March for a Planet, March for a Future, wherever you are, that is the venue that we are ready to hold for you, and to start to build in your community a March for a Planet hub, and build a movement with all communities together, with all people together. And so please like, subscribe, and share the message, and be ready and sign for the next part of this mobilization. Thank you.